Welcome back to the council meeting. Today we'll be hearing from various community agencies. The first up is Key City Theatre. They'll be presenting electronically. Welcome. Are you online? Galen?
I am here.
I apologize for making you wait. That's on me. So anyways, the floor is yours.
Fantastic. Well, it's good to see everybody today. My name is Galen Olsted, Executive Director at Key City Theatre. Just completed my 9th year with the organization, and today I'm joining you from Ottawa, where I'm attending a National Performing Arts Conference. Now, I had a presentation. Do I load that from my end, or is that loaded on your end?
If you got it, just load it on your end, Galen.
Okay. Okay, I'm not quite sure how I do that.
There's a share screen on the very bottom under you there in the middle.
Okay, and
Yeah, if you can't get it, yeah.
okay. Nope.
We probably can pull it up here. We're just gonna get out of the shared folder here. Galen.
Okay. Here, I can get it. I'm just trying to figure out which one I'm sharing here.
Okay, you're good. You got it. You stopped, so it was coming.
There we go. Okay, everybody can see the full screen?
No,
No, yeah, you stopped sharing.
that's your presentation. Yeah,
It was coming and then you stopped it.
Okay, it seems as soon as I go to the presentation, it's
Okay, we can load on this end.
okay.
Yeah. So we'll load. You'll just have to save next slide.
Okay. Great. So this is just a very quick snapshot of 2023 successes, some indicators for our current operations, very quick financial snapshot, and then two projects we're looking at for the next year or next couple of years. Next slide. We've had a very, very busy year. Lots of diversity and range in events that we've had coming through, from circuses to dance, some high-level artists and some emerging artists, indie rock bands. Quite a range of different events that we've had coming through. Next slide. So a very quick snapshot of 4 different events and then one operational event that happened in the last year, and just to highlight those special events. Next slide. So our first event that we had back in September of 2022 was our first First Nations, Métis and Inuit art exhibition. Featured a number of different works, photographic works, painted works. We had some very beautiful beadwork on display, and that was alongside the presentation of 2 sisters, 2 throat singer sisters, who did a performance named Pilk Silk. We had a fantastic response out for that presentation. Next slide. In January of 2023, we had our annual musical, which last year was Cabaret. The January musical is a really neat project where it combines professional design and production team with our community team, several of whom are trained in theater, but don't necessarily practice in a professional manner in the city. So this is a great outlet for them. Next slide. Oh, next slide. There we go. Then in May, we had the Kootenay Children's Festival. Oh, sorry. The Kootenay Children's Festival. Kootenay Children's Festival was a 2-day event this year. It's the first time we've expanded to 2 days. Again in Rotary Park with expanded community partnerships. We had over 2,500 people attending between the 2 days. So we're seeing very good response out for the Children's Festival. And then finally, in June of 2023, we had our first Faces of Pride. I'll catch up there. Had our first Faces of Pride with over 40 portraits and collaborated with our local artist and now international artist, Joel Robeson, with over 20 businesses posting works after the presentation of the portraits that went out into the community. And that project was well supported by some community organizations with the Community Foundation of the Kootenay Rockies and with Rotary. Next slide. And finally, in September of this year, we held the first Ed Fest, which is Arts and Music Festival. The real success of this festival was the collaborations that happened. So this is a multi-organizational festival with Cranbrook History Center. We have Cranbrook Arts, Fisher Peak Performing Artists, Farmers Market, and JCI, all collaborating to deliver the festival, and then with key support from Cranbrook Tourism. And we had support this year with economic development from Cranbrook. Along with Creative BC, Columbia Basin Trust, and the CKCA. Next slide. One of our non-event successes this year was the completion of the renovation of our green room. For several years, we've had these major projects underway, so it was nice to have a relatively small project. So this saw the removal of our kitchen facilities within our green room, and then the installation of countertops and a modified kitchen space. And so we just see the room becoming more professional and hospitable for our artists. Next slide. So a couple indicators for our operations. Our volunteers at Key City Theatre are vital to our operations. We see over 3,912 total volunteer hours this last year. That was contributed by 59 active volunteers. So that's we're still at a lower number of active volunteers than we were pre-COVID, but we are seeing an increase in the number of active volunteers. And one of the changes for the volunteers and for the organization is that we licensed our auditorium for alcohol in 2022, 2021. But this year we did see a significant increase in concession sales. So it's kept our volunteers very, very busy. Next slide. Our year-end numbers, we had 46 host events, and those are events that Key City Theatre signs the contract on and then produces. So we bring those to the community. We had one live on-stage performance, and that's a special kind of performance where we brought people on stage in a very intimate setting with the artists. We had 7 special events, which include the Kootenai Children's Festival. We had kids camps and art gallery shows. We had 33 School District 5 events, separate School District 5 events. And I should note that's not the number of booked days, that's just the individual events. 10 dance events, 45 community events, which include Sam Steele Sweetheart Pageant, things like Realm Idol, JCI Candidate Forum, and so on. And then we had 47 rental shows. And next slide. One of the neat numbers is that our membership, we have 497 memberships last year. And what's neat about this number is that that number has been very consistent from 2018 to 2019 and through until this year. So it really demonstrates that the support we have from the community has been very, very stable. Next slide. So reflecting on that, one of our indicators, one of the things that we track really closely is the ticketed attendance. So this isn't our overall attendance, but our ticket attendance. And if we look at 2015 through until 2019, we see steady growth. 2019 with our peak year. Then we've got our dip leading through COVID. So a partial dip in 2020, our disaster dip in 2021 with only 711 attendees, and then a return in 2022. Then 2023 really stands out as we're in that recovery phase, and we're seeing that rebound in attendance. Very strong recovery, and reflects the resilience of the organization. Looking forward, there is, I think we can suggest that the trend suggests a potential for some growth and a stronger return to continued pre-pandemic attendance. Next slide. A slightly different look at the organization is our overall operational revenues. So it's similar 2015 through until 2019. We see that gradual growth, moving from $460,000 of revenues in 2015 up to $760,000 in 2019. Impact of COVID through 2020 to 2022 and that gradual return. But 2023 really stands out as we've really surpassed our past revenues in this year. And again, it reflects that positive trajectory. Next slide. Looking at just this year's operating revenues, with a breakdown of the different revenue streams, we can see really what this slide is meant to demonstrate is that we have a very diversified revenue structure. So our box office revenue is critical. So we generate significant portion of our revenue through earned revenue. So both through our box office tickets and then related services like concession and rentals. The other piece to kind of illustrate here is the hugely significant importance of the City of Cranbrook's support with this past year, which was $100,000. And we term that and we think of that as I think of that as a foundational support. The other piece to highlight is that we have significant contributions in donations, memberships, as well as sponsorships, which reflects again the community support for the organization. Next slide.
Can I just ask, Is school district number 5? Is school district number 5 contributing to you financially, Galen?
Yes.
I just didn't see it on that pie chart.
So we term the school district 5 as a grant.
Okay,
So it's actually, through one lens, we can call it a grant, and through another lens, it's a rental.
okay.
So it depends a little bit how what what conversation we're having. But in this chart here, right at the lead there, we see school district 5 with a contribution.
43. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Now I should underline that's the cash contribution. We receive significant. So what's not illustrated here is supports like. So we get facility supports, and then there's some associated things like electrical that's absorbed by the school district. And so we don't assign the number here, but there is much more significant support that the school district is supplying.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, with this, again, similar idea here. This is our grant, the number of grants that we had from this last year. And again, it's a similar idea of this diversified revenue streams where we've got a number of different organizations at different levels. So we see community organizations, regional organizations, and federal and provincial organizations all contributing into the facility and to the organization. Okay, next slide. Just to acknowledge our sponsors. Again, these are the businesses that contribute funds to help the organization. So we have the Rick and Mark Jensen Foundation and a number of other organizations there. Next slide. So there's two projects that I wanted to focus on to close this up. The first project we're looking at is EdFest and the continuation of EdFest. Year 1 really hit the targets that we were aiming for. It was our very initial year, so from that sense of community engagement, cultural showcasing, and response back from the community, we certainly saw all successful indicators. One of the challenges that we're facing with this project is that in year 1, the funding for this were all essentially one-year grants. So we're now looking at sustainability. So what we're looking at is to find a way where we can find municipal support for providing foundational funding. So there's no ask at this moment. Future discussions are intended to go through the Department of Recreation and Culture and with Director Thors. But we are, just to put it on the radar, we are looking for support for this event. The other project that we have are with our building renovations. This is going to be a multi-year effort. And what we're focusing on at the moment is the exterior of the facility with an aim to improve the accessibility and visual impact of the facility. And again, kind of echoing and reflecting the goals articulated in the downtown master plan and the tourism master plan. Currently, we've completed initial architectural plans, and we're now looking at engineering plans for the project so that we can start to understand the scope a bit better. And at the same time, we are going out and looking for granting. Next slide. Our board, our active board. Next slide. And our team. One of the pieces from this is that our team has grown significantly over the last, particularly the last year and a half, and we've been able to add in a number of frontline staff to the organization. And next slide. And that's it for my slide presentation. So again, thank you for the opportunity to present.
Well, thank you very much, Galen. I'll just put it up to members of council if they have any questions or comments. No. Councillor Papa.
Yes, thank you. Thanks, Galen. EdFest, great success. Any metrics on what the locals versus out of town attendance was?
We don't have hard numbers on it. So really it was anecdotal. So we were gathering that through essentially through conversations with each of the vendors. So I guess the quick answer, Councillor Popoff, is no. But we did see some attendance in through I guess we'd call it tourism attendance.
Excellent. And still with EdFest, is that going forward, that's the preferred weekend to run EdFest? It coincides with Grand Fondo and a few other events?
Potentially. I mean, there's always ability for flexibility within the calendar. I think we're certainly finding the calendar within this September range is very crammed with a number of different festivals and events. So yes, there is a possibility for moving it, if that's the question. I think the choice of the specific date is partly about the number of partners that are involved and the availability of all the partners to be part of the event.
Thank you, Galen. Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Mayor. Galen, thank you so much for highlighting the excellent work that's gone on, including the post-COVID recovery. That's great to see. And, you know, I think everyone around the table really appreciates, you know, the excellence that you and your team have brought in terms of arts and culture, that link to community vibrancy. But you're also clearly showing that arts and culture are also economic development. I really appreciate the business information that you share in terms of financial sustainability, diversified revenue streams. I'm just wondering, have you ever done any calculations around spin-offs in terms of hotel rooms, restaurant meals, those kinds of things?
We have. So one of the challenges we're finding right now is that the metrics that we have are stale. And the metrics by which I mean are, so when we're looking at multipliers, so we're trying to find some more fresh data to figure out whether the multipliers we're using are accurate. But we're looking at approximately 1 million to 1.5 million in terms of spin-offs, very like direct spin-offs, and then there are related spin-offs from that, which would be even greater.
Oh, that's great. I think, yeah, as if you're able to update those metrics, and I think that that's another great message to share with the community. Thank you.
Great.
Yeah, and Galen, I just want to, Wayne here, I just want to reiterate Councillor Ray's comments on the job you're doing over there. Yeah, a tremendous job. Certainly, you know, I look at Key City and the events at Western Financial Place. Those two venues are contributed significantly. I've noticed here in the last year, there's a vibe downtown that, you know, that's been missing for quite some time. The eateries and the pubs and whatnot, they're busy, you know, before your event. And then, you know, there was a time people would go home after. We see that the downtown is much busier before and after, and you're contributing to that. And on your revenue numbers, they're very promising last year's, and we hope to see an increase like that again this year. So all the best, yeah. Thanks very much, Galen.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much. Right.
Next up is Ursula Briggle from Cranbrook Public Library. Can you hear me, Ursula?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
I can hear you and see you smiling. Yes, I can. The floor is yours.
Okay. Sharing my screen. Okay. So thank you so much for inviting me to talk about the Cranbrook Public Library. In this presentation, I hope to convey how the library contributes towards the city's strategic goals, its funding needs for 2024, and our planned initiatives for 2025 to 28. Strategic goals were front of mind at the library this year. We are just now nearing the end of our own strategic planning process. And during the consultations held around the community in September, we heard again and again that people love the library. And they want us to keep doing what we're doing and more of it. So it made us think, what does the library do that people value? Every day, the library strives to provide barrier-free access to information for everyone in a safe and welcoming environment. It acts as a refuge for people when it is hot or cold and when the air is smoky. It offers a place to study, work, meet with others, or relax and read a book or magazine. Plans are underway to revitalize the outside entrances to make them safer, more welcoming and accessible, and to create an outdoor program space. Architectural plans have been prepared and city and library staff are now looking for grants to fund this project. The hope is to complete it in time for the library's 100th anniversary in 2025. We are just starting to develop a business continuity plan as well, so that the library will be better positioned to respond in a considered manner to emergency situations in the future and to minimize the amount of time that library services are unavailable to the community. The most vital component to creating a welcoming environment is our staff. The library's employees are trained to provide excellent customer service and have the skills needed to deal with difficult situations in a respectful and professional manner. As important as the space is, the core mandate of the library is to provide access to information and foster the development of a literate, informed, engaged citizenry. Whether it's getting ideas for running and marketing a business, conducting the tasks of daily life, learning something, or finding a novel or film to escape into, the library strives to offer reliable, relevant, and current material in a variety of formats: print, video, audio, digital, to meet all those needs. This is especially important as people seek ways to economize as financial pressures continue to mount. Many people also depend on the library to access the internet, whether using one of the public access workstations or their own device. What they access has shifted significantly over the years. Checking email and browsing websites used to be the most common activities. Now people are increasingly accessing government services, applying for jobs, doing their banking, and taking courses to upgrade their skills. Many of these people are not comfortable, though, using the technology and working online. They require support to build their confidence in navigating services in the digital world. Library staff spend time with each individual to learn of their specific needs and give them the encouragement and assistance they need to succeed. Programs for all ages are offered by the library each year. Story time, the summer reading club, author events, coding workshops are just a few examples. Through partnerships with other organizations, the library can offer more programs that meet people's diverse interests. For example, the Cranbrook and District Garden Club support makes the seed library possible, and those seeds were gone within 2 weeks of them being put out this year, even though we've never had as many seeds as we have this year. The Columbia Basin Alliance for Literacy has partnered with us on many programs over the years, such as the Computer Basics for Seniors classes. And the library also partners with other BC libraries to present events that feature nationally and internationally acclaimed authors. The purpose of these programs is to inform, promote literacy, and foster a love of learning. Through them, the library hopes to enrich participants' overall quality of life. We also work with government agencies to spread word about important topics such as emergency preparedness planning. We also help distribute public engagement surveys, and we make documents available for public viewing. The library offers outreach programs and services that foster social connections and make people feel they belong. One of the library's long-term homebound patrons has said that the library is her lifeline, because it's not just about the books, it's about catching up with the person who delivers them to her door. Each month's delivery gives her something to look forward to, and opening the bag to discover the books within brings her joy. She's told us that she suffers from severe depression and truly believes that the library has saved her life because she knows we care about her. Other homebound patrons love the service just as much, and unsurprisingly, hugs are an occupational hazard for the person making deliveries, which was especially fraught in the past few years. Laughter, learning, and enjoyment of each other's company are hallmarks of our other outreach programs, which take place everywhere from long-term care facilities to Area C communities. Library clubs, such as the weekly knitting and writing groups, where participants meet to learn techniques from each other, work on projects, and share stories, they're designed to encourage inclusion and build a sense of community. At times, this works almost too well, with staff fielding noise complaints from other patrons because a group is having too much fun. Behind the scenes, the library is involved on the city's interim Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee because we recognize that despite efforts to date, we still have a long way to go before our community can provide truly barrier-free access for people of all backgrounds and abilities. Cranbrook has a diverse and vibrant community of artisans, entrepreneurs, and business people. The display case provides opportunities for local artisans to creatively showcase their work and collectors their collections to the thousands of patrons who visit during the month. This increases the artisans' visibility in the community, and we have had feedback from a number of them that they've received commissions as a result of displaying their work in the library's display case. Some displays draw a crowd. One year, international students gathered in front of the December holiday display to get a group picture to send home to their families. Local business owners and entrepreneurs work tirelessly to diversify Cranbrook's economy. The library houses a comprehensive collection of business and marketing related books and digital resources, technological tools such as a sound recording booth and mobile film studio, plus other pieces of equipment in the Library of Things to enable business people to conduct research and investigate new tools so they can make informed investment decisions about the future of their businesses. A welcoming space to work, meet, and relax. Access to information, physical and digital, plus books and films that entertain, programs for different ages and interests strengthened through partnerships, services that address the needs of diverse user groups, outreach activities that foster a sense of inclusion and community, friendly and professional staff always ready to help people meet their needs. This is what people value in the library. And with the support of the city and regional district, this is what the library commits to delivering in 2024 and beyond. The city's current 5-year financial plan includes these increases to the library's base grant. Previously funded through numerous one-time grants, a permanent public tech trainer position will enable the library to develop long-term strategies and programs to help people bridge the technological divide. As mentioned earlier, people's reliance on technology and the complexity of what they're doing online is increasing. This position will allow us to more effectively meet their needs over time. Collections are the books, videos, audiobooks, magazines, and digital material that support the core business of the library. We continually invest in new material to ensure people have access to current, reliable, and relevant content. Every year, people look to the library to access material in diverse formats. The collection support will help meet the demand and cover increasing costs, giving people a richer selection of material to choose from. Also included is an inflationary increase of 1.7% on existing operational costs. I wish that this slide was not needed, but as you are all too aware, costs for most everything are increasing dramatically, and the library has definitely not been immune. During this year's budget process, current operating cost projections were recalculated with 2022 and 23 actuals and a revised inflationary rate based on current trends. Building maintenance costs are increasing due to the age of the facility. It has been 17 years since the library opened its doors at its present location, and the number of major repairs is increasing. For example, flooring at the entrance is almost worn through to the substrate, and light fixtures need to be replaced because the parts for them are no longer available. Insurance premiums and audit costs have increased over 5% per year in the past 2 years, a trend that's likely to continue in 2024. Employment-related costs, such as CPP and EI premiums, the WorkSafe BC industry base rate for libraries, the provincial minimum wage, extended benefits premiums, pension plan contributions, and cost of living adjustments are all set to increase beyond what was originally forecast. 2 long-term IT maintenance agreements for mission-critical software, including one that was in place for 7 years, are up for renewal and will likely increase in line with other costs. The sole new addition is to permanently fund software licenses for the public computers previously covered by a 3-year grant, which ends in December. So in addition to the funding it receives from the city and regional district, the library receives annual operating grants from the provincial government. These grants were cut back in 2009 from 2008 levels by 20% and have remained frozen at that level. So it was cut from 19 million to 14 million per year for all public libraries, and it's remained frozen at that 14 million since 2009. So that's what I mean when I'm talking about the annual operating grants from the province. So in 2023, we received an additional one-time provincial enhancement grant to support library services and programs over the next 3 years. This grant is significant. It could fully fund both the increases to existing operational costs and software licenses, as shown on the slide, plus the 2025 initiatives, which I will talk about next. However, as a one-time grant with no guarantee for a subsequent increase to the permanent operating grants or further one-time grants, using the enhancement grant to cover operational costs would expose the library to the risk of potentially needing to reduce services in the future. So instead, the library board decided to allocate the enhancement grant to short-term strategic projects, temporary increases to collection spending, and further strengthening our IT infrastructure. As I mentioned, the amount of funding we get from the provincial government has been at the same level for 14 years now, but advocacy efforts are ongoing with a call to increase the provincial government's funding for public libraries. While the current economic climate presents all of us with many challenges to just maintain current service levels, the library hopes to fulfill the wish repeatedly expressed during the community consultations to adapt and expand what it does to meet the changing needs of our residents. We will achieve this by building capacity, collections, and IT infrastructure. Although they each have a different area of focus, the 3 part-time positions planned between 2025 and 27 share a common purpose: to enable all staff, new and existing, to more effectively provide exceptional programs and services that people will value and use. The library traditionally has not put many resources towards marketing its services and programs, preferring instead to use those resources to build more services and programs. The problem with this approach is that while current users know what's happening at the library, many people in our community who are not regular library users are unaware of the diversity of our offerings. Communications coordinator will manage the library's public communications to ensure consistency in messaging, design, and delivery starting in 2025, the library's 100th anniversary. The information services coordinator will increase the capacity to meet people's information needs. They will also create discovery tools for different areas of the library's collections to raise awareness about what people can find on the shelves and online. Additional public service hours will cover current low staffing periods to provide a consistent level of public service throughout the day. The added benefit is that existing staff can then provide more on-the-floor assistance and programs during these times. And each year, the library will maintain and upgrade its IT infrastructure so that it remains robust, secure, and meets the needs of our users. The library is part of the social and cultural infrastructure of our community. It provides an inclusive space that welcomes everyone, supports literacy, lifelong learning, and enriches the quality of life for all who use it. It strives to foster a sense of belonging and social connections. It forms partnerships to expand the range of available programs. The staff works tirelessly to provide exceptional services, and they strive to treat everybody who comes through our doors with respect, kindness, and professionalism. By providing the best services and programs possible, the library supports the vision of Cranbrook as a vibrant community where people find opportunities. To answer any questions that you may have, and if you would like to know more about current statistics and any of that, I'm more than happy to.
Thank you, Ursula. I will put it up to council members of council. Any comments, questions? Councillor Popoff.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Hi, Ursula. So we just heard Galen from Key City Theatre, and in his presentation, he identified the number of sponsors, corporate sponsors and otherwise, as well as all the different other granting agencies such as Rotary and others. Is the library eligible for those sources of revenue? And if so, what, if anything, are you working on?
Right. So the library, it depends on the organization. So for certain things like any funds that are raised through anything that's provided through the BC Lottery Commission, public libraries are ineligible to receive any kind of funding from organizations that have raised funds using lotteries, raffles, 50-50 draws, whatever. We do have the Friends of the Library, and they do a lot of fundraising through their book sales and things like that, and so they support our programs and services. We also put out applications to programs such as Canada Summer Jobs to get funding for summer students. And we also reach out to some organizations for funding specific to one-time projects. A key one, say, is the Columbia Basin Trust. They've supported us immensely over the years. The challenge that we find is that most of the costs in the library are ongoing operational costs, and most of the grants that are available are specific for one-time capital projects or pilot projects, things like that. And so we do our best to kind of, for anything that's one time. So for example, with our strategic planning process and our business continuity plan that we're going to be engaging in, that's funded through grants. But again, most of our costs are ongoing operational. So that's where the challenge lies with finding sources beyond our local governments, so the city, regional district, and of course also the provincial government.
Thank you, Councillor Stetsky.
Thank you, and thank you very much for the great work that you and your staff are doing at the library. Quick update, if you could, for council on the strategic plan and when you might think that will be completed and being brought forward to council. Just an estimate, of course, at this point.
Mm-hmm. So I just received the draft strategic plan from our consultant, and will be sending it out to the library board for their chance to review it and provide feedback on it. And the timeline at this point is to have the final strategic plan ready for January.
Thank you. Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Mayor. Ursula, thank you for your presentation. Can you remind us what the amount is for the enhancement grant and what the timeline is to spend that grant? And then I've got a couple follow-up questions on that.
So the enhancement grant is $316,984. It represents just over a third of our annual operating grant. So that's why I said it was significant. That's why it's significant. It needs to be spent within a 3-year period.
Okay, thank you. So just as a follow-up, I hear what you're saying and I can understand the library board's approach in terms of that grant. At the same time, the city's facing a very challenging, tax year this year in terms of what we're looking at for the budget for 2024. What would be the process to explore council's wishes regarding that enhancement grant and to provide feedback to the library board if council has other suggestions or wishes about the use of that grant for certainly the 2024 budget?
Mm-hmm. So definitely council can provide feedback to the library board and the board will then deliberate on that, on what council, the suggestions that are made. However, under the Library Act, the library board does have final authority on how all funds that it receives are spent. So I can't say, what the library board's final decision would be regarding the use of the provincial enhancement grant. But I do know that they're very cognizant of the fact that the city is facing significant financial pressures this year. And I think they would take any request that council provided to them for considerations for 2024 and 25. I think they would take those quite seriously.
Thanks very much, Ursula. I think that's it. So before you go, I just want to make a comment. Certainly, I've known you long enough now, and I think most members of council have, that we understand your passion and drive for excellence. That is very, very evident. As well as your commitment to providing a caring environment. That is obvious anytime anybody goes into the library here. And to your staff and your team, I think the success of the Cranbrook Public Library, where it's recognized in the eyes of, I think, every other library in British Columbia, sure is a model, is your ability to adapt and to shift programs, and the tech tutoring, the Idea Lab, and your outreach program are just a few examples of that. So thank you so much for what you do for the city and the corporation. It's very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ursula. A question for Charlotte?
Thank you. So for the library additional items that have been added, will those be added to the new budget requests chart?
They, Councillor Ray, through Mr. Mayor, they will be part of the package that you'll see on December 13th. So all the information is in the slide in terms of what the new asks are. So those will be embedded in a similar format to what you saw last year with the new asks, as well as what you're going to see expanded for the new asks we looked at yesterday. So they'll be included for the 13th. I had not planned on doing anything beyond what you see in the package, but you will see them as one of the new asks, and you will be asked to move or not a resolution on it.
Thank you very much. Just a quick follow-up. Would it be possible to add them to the new budget requests chart that you've put together for us?
Of course.
That would be great, just because it's so helpful to see if it's tax increase, reserve, all that. That's just great to have it all in
Sure.
one place. Thank you so much.
Councillor Ray has a question as well. Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Bissett.
I knew who you meant. So that's in addition to the 8.6% then?
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, left hand, right hand. Anybody else with any questions, comments? No? Okay, we'll move on now. Next up is Cranbrook Tourism. And they will be presenting electronically as well. We can see you, but we can't hear you. How did you know I was going to do that? Oh. I'm going to start going, oh, Councillor Stetsky, Councillor Graham. Just to balance things, I need a yin and yang to be working here.
Hello? Hello?
You're
Can you
coming
hear me
through
now?
Christy. Yep,
Oh,
you're
good.
Got you
'Cause
now,
I was-
Christy.
I wasn't sure how I was going to fix it, so it looks like it got fixed on your end. That's good. Hi. I guess I'm going to bring up my presentation and share my screen too. It looks like that's going to be the way we do this. So let me just. That. Keynote. Okay, so you can see my presentation now. I'm gonna go back.
That looks good on our end, Christy.
Right here. Okay. Thank you for having me here today. I feel excited to be presenting, and I feel appreciative that we're just kind of coming to the close of our 1 year of our 5-year agreement for fee for service. So that has really, in this last year and planning ahead and in our own operations and budgeting, provided us with some real continuity in our planning work. So that is much appreciated. As we go through the presentation, I always want to draw attention to some of the new photography that you'll see featured in it, which is work that we've been doing over the past year. So it's always original and fresh from that perspective. So like, keep this short and sweet, and hopefully have some time for questions. So 2023 as a year in review, it's been busy. What we continue to see is growth sort of in all aspects, whether that's with the MRDT or municipal regional district tax, traffic to our website, occupancy in the hotels, and also visitors into the visitor center. And I think, you know, we're really proud to see that growth continue. Some other highlights and things that we'll be addressing as we move forward in this presentation is ways we've been able to provide greater support to event organizers within the community. Some of the record grant funding, we've been able to, a new high water mark for us for some of our projects that we have going on right now. Address a little bit of the tourism master plan that was presented to council in the spring, and sort of places where we think we're helping to further progress on that. And I'll also be talking a little bit about a brand review that we have been doing in this last quarter of this year, and that we hope to be able to share publicly at the beginning of 2024. So marketing, we continue to do all the great marketing that we have been doing. This year, again, another visitor guide, another trail map. We're printing them in greater quantities. So this year it was 50,000 visitor guides that we printed and 10,000 trail maps. So beyond just increasing the circulation and distribution, getting those into the hands and being found in more places. Advertising continues in many formats, being print, digital, billboards, promoting Cranbrook and area more broadly. This year, our advertising budget was to the tune of $110,000 that we spent in promoting Cranbrook and region. Media relations or our media hosting program. So continue to host media here and see them producing stories on Cranbrook. Recent stories that we had come out with Cranbrook were by the Weather Network, CBC, BC Magazine, and Canadian Cycling. And I think that you've all got your own copy of this presentation. You should be able to use the clickable link at the bottom right-hand corner to see more examples of that work and click through to any of the stories themselves, should it interest you. Marketing and sponsorships. So especially in the event space this year, we were happy to work with more event organizers than ever and to be able to support them to a greater degree than we have. So this year, our sponsorship program and event support program was able to support these organizers with just over $30,000 of support to see them broaden their marketing and reach in promoting their events. And a little bit to touch base on visitor centers. So first, I'd like to just acknowledge and thank City for some of the upgrades that we were able to get at Elizabeth Lake this year. So they were minor things, but I'd say that they were really well received and appreciated, and they made the space look sharper and cleaner, a little fresher. So that was some flooring, some countertops, some paint. Looked really good. Our volunteers who've spent many seasons there came into the season being very excited about that, and it was much appreciated. So what have we seen in the visitor center space this year? Growth. So that's great. We see greater numbers of people coming into the visitor centers, sort of, kind of as we've revamped from pandemic levels, that just kind of continues to track upward. And we had two new initiatives that we launched last year in 2022, and we assumed operations of the visitor center. So that was, we launched mobile, which is where we go out to events, specifically some examples of that being the farmers market. This year we were at Fort Steele every Wednesday, and then we attend a lot of events, whether that be EdFest or the Wassa Lake Triathlon, the Grand Fondo. We're there to greet people when they're arriving in community, picking up maybe their welcome or their registration packages, and we're usually on site to support them if they're looking for recommendations, whether that be restaurants or campgrounds or whatever that might be. So again, seeing that number, that was a number that we didn't have a history for until 2022. So even we were able to increase that number in 2023. And then live chat, which we do via our website. And just a little teaser, we're adding a little bit, a new dimension there next year as we have a visitor center bike coming. The visitor center bike will be mobile and move around the downtown core. So we're hoping to be able to utilize that at the farmers markets, Rotary Park, and other locations around the downtown next year. It kind of looks like an ice cream bike. So instead of having, an ice cream come out of the pop-up, it kind of pops up with display boards and brochure racks and things, and a tent that comes out too. So if somebody could feasibly set up a lot of spots where they pedaled the bike too. So we'll look to bring that to some hot spots in 2024. A few pictures, some examples of some of the mobile events and some of our setups this year. The far left out at Fort Steele, so that was every Wednesday. Our team was out there. The farmers market there in the middle, and then on the right-hand side, we've got Sean, our visitor center manager, at the Cranbrook Gravel Grind out at Idlewild Park in September. And always this slide, some of the numbers this year, kind of where we see the growth. So some of the key metrics as a little snapshot of what we're tracking and how they're tracking for this year. Visits to our website up 4.6%. Visitors served up 19.9, so essentially 20%. Occupancy in the hotels tracking pretty evenly. If anything, we're down a touch this year, but I'd call it mostly even. And then where we're sitting with MRDT revenue, there's a little asterisk there because when you look at the year-over-year change, it doesn't quite make sense. It would look like we're down if you were to compare 2022 to 2023. But I'm comparing based on this month compared to last year, and that would see us 35% up with the MRDT revenues this year too. So we've been really pleased and surprised to see that growth there, especially as coming in through the pandemic, a lot of predictions about where, travel would recover. There was all kinds of predictions, but a lot of people saw that being as, further out, not quite this quick. So that's been great too. And with this slide, I just wanted to show a revenue trend as far as how the MRDT really allows us to leverage other opportunities with increasing efficiency. So, looking at in year one, where MRDT essentially was our main source of revenue, and how as the years go on, we're able to track up with these other sources and sort of create some more diversification in the streams, whether that's from grants, retail that we do at the visitor center, and some of other like fees for service agreements. So what else? What else have we got going on that we haven't talked about yet? The Tourism Master Plan. So just touching on that briefly, I think most of you will have seen it, reviewed it, and had a chance to ask some questions about it. I just want to do a little shout out here to a call out to Darren Brewer, who's been a real ally in moving this forward and championing our work. And obviously this is, this project was collaborative. It's not just a Cranbrook tourism-led project. But we look at the recommendations that came out of the Tourism Master Plan, there were 7 key recommendations. And I just want to touch on maybe a couple of them in the sense of ones that we see moving forward, or that there's been some activity on in the last year. So I know in the investing in arrivals and gateways, number 1 and 5, interpretive and wayfinding signage. I know that Darren's got some things in the works that he's been working on towards that. And I'd say largely out of our office, we've been looking at number 6, which is pursuing sport events and festivals. So I'll be speaking a little bit to our to our event strategy. And maybe just going back to this drawing for a second too, I would say that there's been a lot of conversation and ongoing communication about potential redevelopment and revitalization of the History Center grounds. So we're also enthusiastic to see how that partner is moving that forward. So the event strategy. This was a project that we received funding from regional districts, City of Cranbrook, and the federal government through the Tourism Relief Fund through Pacific Economic Development. And so we've been working on that over the last year. There's a few elements to it. Some of those elements being what we've been able to use the funding for to date is to seed some new events, to complete some research. There's a report that we're producing we hope to be able to share in early 2024. And one of the other outputs is some tools that we hope will be really helpful in future in the event landscape. So I would also say that some of the key highlights out of that report, I think that will be valuable, will be looking at how we differentiate events, being community versus destination, how to create some improvements to the hosting environment, and some tools and processes for greater success. So also wanting to just call out to this picture, this was a great, I know it's been spoke to, I think in Galen's presentation too, just about the events calendar and what's kind of everybody saw in the last year. This was an event hosted at it was middle September. This is the Cranbrook Gravel Grind race starting out of Idlewild Park. So this was a spectacular event that brought 168 riders out onto the course. We know because with these events being ticketed or registration-based events, we can see exactly origin of people who participated. So 151 of the 168 riders came from outside of the community. So that's, really impactful to see. And they even provided a little bit of an economic impact assessment from that event. So they, depending on, again, how you want to look at multipliers and how you want to look at the math, they based on 151 riders from outside of the community traveling with 100 non-riders, spending 2 nights, average amount spent by all visitors. They came out with an economic benefit from all visitors from this event in particular. They put it at about $95,000 from that one-day event that was hosted. I would say so not just speaking to the gravel grind, we did actually support the Wassa Lake Triathlon this year in producing an economic impact assessment report. It's also available on our website if anybody's curious or hasn't seen it. And, with that one, we were able to see that 83% of the people coming to the Wassa Lake Triathlon are visitors, 53% of them being from Alberta. So with the traveling friends and family that come with them, that's about 950 visitors. And we were even able to give that an economic impact to Cranbrook of $407,188. So it's an interesting space to be in, to be trying to assess kind of values and economic impacts of some of these events. And I'd say it's really important in prioritizing some of the opportunities for the future. Another event that was new this year was the Beer Fest. So that was an event hosted in September, 3rd week of September, brought in we attributed that one with 730 patrons, 42% being visitors. So, yeah. What else? I think the last thing I'd say on events and that we hope that will come out of sort of the report is that we're just, I think, looking at collaboratively how we can create a more supportive events climate here and what our role as tourism is to play in that and what the role of our partners is. So hoping to do some further work with that and also just to, I think the only last thing I'd say about that is like in the case of, for instance, this gravel grind, third-party event organizers like this have multiple communities to choose from. It's really exciting when they choose us. And so we want to make sure that, especially because they're hosting events in other communities, they have a comparative sort of in what our hosting climate is like compared to others. And so we just want to ensure that we've got the best environment to see those events grow. I will say with this one too, it was capped at 100 and I think 80 riders was the most they could have with this event. The event they run in Fernie is 500. And I know that they're currently, for the event they're planning for 2024, they're hoping to grow the numbers. Part of it, what held them back was some capacity restrictions with permitting in the Cranbrook Community Forest. So they're working on some further permitting that would allow them to have a bigger event next year. And I was in that group of riders. I would say it was really, really exciting as we rode out of Idlewild Park down into the community forest just to see the streets filled with that many riders at that time of the morning altogether. So the final project I'll touch on is just something that we're in the process of right now. Some of you may be aware of it because you may have participated in elements of it. So we're doing something which we'll call the Cranbrook DNA Project. This is a deep dive on what our brand is, what our brand promise is, and how we connect with our best potential visitors. So how we went about this, we're working with a team from an entity called Destination Think, and they've been over the last couple months helping us with some research. They came into community, they did 10 one-on-one interviews with some key opinion leaders in the interview. We were able to complete 500 resident surveys. So we're really happy with the numbers we were able to achieve there. And then they also did a workshop while they were here. So I think some members of council were even able to participate that day. We tried to get a real good cross section of community members involved so we could really hear their voices. And I think what we really hope to come out of it is flipping ahead, when we talk about what is Cranbrook's story and what's the story that we should be telling the world, this is a smattering of images that, if people were to have to throw out something that they iconically associate with Cranbrook, you might associate some of these things. But we want to make sure that as we continue to do marketing on behalf of Cranbrook as a destination, as a city, that we are telling the most authentic story, we're capitalizing on our most unique attributes, and that we have a story that residents support. and believe in too. So we are not just telling that story without a social license and to tell that story, and that we're telling it in the right way. So more on that. We'll have a full report and more outputs of that in 2024. The only final thing I'd say about it is probably for me, some of the hopes is that it'll help us with our future brand positioning, destination story, and brand voice, and it may inform some of our logos, taglines, and other brand guidelines moving forward. And that is it. That's what I got.
Thank you very much, Christy. Very informative. I'll go around the table here. Councillor Sesky has a comment.
Yeah, a question actually, and thank you very much for the great progress that we've seen in Cranbrook around tourism. I'm looking forward to the results of the DNA work that you're doing, of course. Quick question for you in terms of tourists' perspective of Cranbrook. One of the budget items that we're looking at is $50,000 towards beautification of Cranbrook. And it's a consideration we'll be looking at for budget for next year. What do you hear? What have you been hearing about Cranbrook and beautification, and what's your sense of how important it is that we spend some time and some money on making Cranbrook look more beautiful?
I would say that even when I think the results of this resident survey come back, which will be shared broadly and will be on our website for anybody to consume, I'm going to guess that comes up often. I think we've seen from other, I would think some of the city's engagements and things that they do, that it comes up in any of the work that we do. So I think for sure there's opportunity. Obviously that would have to be spent very strategically, because, you know, as much as 50,000 could be a lot, it could also be a little, depending on how you utilize that. So I think it would be great. Just want to see that it was very thoughtful in how that was utilized.
Thank you. Further, Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks so much, Christy. Yeah, you've really made a huge difference, you and your team, in terms of raising our game for Cranbrook and area. So thank you so much, and great to see the diversified funding that you've been able to secure. So thank you for all your work on that. You mentioned the events climate, and thank you for strengthening that as part of our community. Has there been any discussion, this is a small item, but around some kind of shared online events calendar that folks could use in a professional fashion with a little bit of support from your team, just so if people are planning events, they can go to a date and see, oh, there's already 4 events on that day, maybe I should look somewhere else?
It's come up many times. Yeah, so that's not new. I think one of the challenges would be getting, because it still comes down to the organizers confirming their events and sharing that information. So I'd say historically, I think that's been the challenge. The first 2 years we printed our visitor guide, we tried to get confirmed events and we'd print them in the guide. We've stopped printing them because, you know, we're going to print with that maybe towards the end of the year, and we're trying to see the whole year ahead. And it was really challenging to get people, even if they had a good sense their event was happening, nobody wanted to say for sure. So I still think it would be a great tool, and it wouldn't be that hard for us to create moving forward. I think that's actually one that will happen. It's low hanging fruit. I think it's just only ever going to be as good as valuable as it would have to have great utilization, people contributing to it.
Just a quick follow-up. Yeah, I think an online only option would be great. And anyways, look forward to future updates on that. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Christy. You're doing a fantastic job. And, you know, we were just heard from, oh, sorry, Councillor Graham, I didn't see your hand up. Apologies.
That's all right. I heard rumor might be your birthday today. So if it is.
It is. Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. We won't do that.
Okay.
Happy birthday. Yeah, so, you know, we just heard from Galen, and, you know, revenues are up, the business is up, things are pretty positive out there. There seems to be a vibe picking up in the community. So, you know, a lot of that's on you and your organization. So, yeah, I think we're starting to see things happening. And, you know, I think once, you know, once the vibe is here, I think there's only one way we're going to be going, and I think we're going to be taking off here pretty quickly. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
The final presentation today is from the Cranbrook History Center. Welcome to the meeting. This is again electronic.
Okay,
can
I'm
see
not sure
you.
whether I'm on or not.
Yeah, we can see you, but we can't. Okay, try again.
Okay,
Bob?
let's try this. Yeah, that's me. Sorry,
Yeah.
I got video stopped for some reason. I don't know why that would be. Is that on? Okay.
There you go. Yeah.
Well, thanks very much, Mr. Mayor and members of council, and we'll look forward to making a presentation on the progress the Cranbrook History Center is making this year. And I'm going to turn this right over to Jared Tenise. Jared is our operations manager. I think some of you have met him, but if not, he will be the one making the presentation. And I'll be glad to answer any questions that anyone has on top of that from a board perspective. So Jared, go ahead.
Where's yours, Jared? Thank you.
Thank you. Just want to make sure everyone can hear me.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
everything's good.
Excellent. Gisip Gikiat, Hukathic Jared. My name is Jared. I am the operations manager here at the Cranbrook History Center. I've been with the operation for almost a year and a bit. So I look forward to going over this presentation with you folks here today. I'm just going to share my screen with you. All right, can you see the presentation?
Yes, we can.
Okay, excellent. So the Cranbrook History Center, where history is the adventure. I'd like to just again thank the council and the mayor for everything and the support that you guys have done, as well as the community as we've grown over the year here at the Cranbrook History Center. The funds that you currently give us for the fee of service, as you can see, a lot of those goes towards our main expenses for year to date. Our utilities are quite high in terms of what we're able to do. We are looking at other alternatives in order to try to get those prices down and try to save some money in our electricity. Over the 2022 to 2023, our total expenses have dropped because as our utilities have increased, as well as our insurance has increased, we have been making cutbacks on our salary and wages and our staff in order to try to even out some of these rising expenses. As you can see, this is what we've been able to do with our limited staff to hold the amount of programs we've been able to do as well has been very successful. Over the course of the year, we've held 58 unique programs and events. That has seen those events and programs have been successful due to the amount of volunteer hours that we have received. The amount of volunteer hours that we have received here at the Cranbrook History Center has been over 3,000 hours by our dedicated volunteer staff, or volunteers. And we have been able to see over 9,115 people through the doors here through either our free events, our paid events, or through our regular admission. Out of those, we've also been able to offer about 1,676 tours of our historic trains. This here is a year in review. These are some of the highlights that we've been able to achieve over the year. Starting from January, we've had a schematic design project completed with Barry Architecture for phase 1 of our facility renovations. In February, we saw over 300, it was actually 450 people attended for our first Meet Your Museum Family Day event. In March, our first traveling exhibit, hosted in partnership with the Legacy of Hope Foundation, saw over 800 people, students through the East Kootenays and West Kootenays come through our doors and see this exhibit as it made its way through. In April, we received a $1 million grant. We secured it for the phase 2 of the train shed project. In May, it was our first in-person Heritage Fair that was impacted due to COVID-19 over the last couple of years. We saw a massive increase in the amount of schools that have taken part in our Heritage Fair as we moved on. July, we expanded and diversified our summer programming offerings. We've offered more summer programs over each week throughout summer. So that way children and parents have more options to be able to give their kids somewhere to go over the long summer months. Of course, we've also expanded this through our spring break camps, as well as our Pro D day camps that we work with SD5 and SD6 currently to be able to offer an educational day off, even though it's a day off. As we move into September, we participated as a partner for the first EdFest. We felt that this event was a massive success. It helped us really move forward in some more exhibits and ideas as we move into the future. And of course, in October, we held our second annual Fright Train or Haunted Train tour, and we saw a 37.9 increase over the year prior. Some of the challenges that we have seen over the year, due to the rising cost of basic goods and services, there's been a limited capacity for additional funding and initiatives within our communities. We understand that. So we have decided, as a revamped annual giving strategy, we have decided to focus on securing major sponsorships through businesses. We've begun this process of building relationships with Tech and TELUS for this purpose. It's very hard for a nonprofit to ask people who are struggling to keep food on their table to help us keep our lights on. So we've decided to adjust our giving strategies to really focus on those individuals in business to help us move forward and be successful in the plans that we have moving forward. Based on the current staffing and volunteer levels, CHC is as capacity of services and programs that can be offered with the resources available. Regaining the BC Arts Council operation funding is a high priority for us and for building our capacity. 2 more successful projects have to be completed before we can go after BC Art Council's funding to be able to reapply. We feel that this is an amount that will help us move forward and again be able to bring on new staff to help us move these programs forward and to be able to offer more programs not just to the city of Cranbrook but to the outstanding areas of the East Kootenays. As reported by Kootenay Rockies Tourism, the 2023 fire season had a major impact on tourism numbers throughout the traditional high season. Diversifying services focused on shoulder and winter season offerings will help reduce the dependency on our summer tour season for revenue generation. We were directly impacted due to the fires here within the Occam as well as the East Kootenays. We saw that the travel for tourism was down drastically, and because of that, we have decided to focus more on our programming and what we have to offer again to the community, to the surrounding community on a daily basis. Our comparative revenues, as you can see, from 2019 was pre-COVID, which is a very successful year when it comes to our grants, our city services, and our self-generated revenue. As we move forward all the way to 2023, even with the summer fire season, we're still able to increase our self-generated revenue as well as our grant offerings throughout 2023. The only grant that is not on there, of course, is our project grant of the $1 million because it would be skewed and look really funny. So we didn't put that in there as we move forward. Human resources, as you can see, the total subsidies offered to tourism is significantly down. As you can see, from 2019 all the way to 2023, it has gone significantly down more and more, and it's been very difficult for us to acquire these funds and acquire these subsidies during our busy times. Fewer wage subsidies are available as federal and provincial funding stagnates. For staff retention and well-being, current services and programs are at capacity. And of course, key areas for increasing staff are considered under review. Marketing and a community engagement position to be able to get us out into the public on every event that's happening so people can see who we are and what we have to offer at all events is something that we're really pushing forward for, as well as a rentals program coordinator who'll be able to help with our rental program as we're currently increasing in our offerings for weddings and services of that as well. It is unknown if the minimum wage will increase. We do predict, and tourism does predict, that a wage increase is down the line at some point. How soon that will be, we'll not know, but that will affect us as we move forward with our total wages as we go. So the plan for the future, what exactly are we doing here at the Cranbrook History Center in hopes of assisting and helping the tourism master plan? We are planning to develop our museum into something that is, again, going to be for the future and not just be something that we are. We want to predict and be something of that tourism hotspot and be that place that people will like to visit and increase the tourism to Cranbrook and have them stay here for a longer period of time. This is just a small snippet of some of the work that we've been working on over the summer months. As you can see, this is what is our upper freight shed. It is 4,600 square feet of available space for development. As you can see, we have an internationally recognized paleo collection that has been identified and hopefully we'll be able to expand upon as we grow. We have 125 years of city history and heritage, and of course our growing connections to the Tanaka and Swepnik communities within our region. As you can see through that development plan there, we do have some ideas of other museums and what we're pushing for the future and that redevelopment. So in order for that redevelopment to happen, we have a few next steps that we are doing and we are completing here at the Cranbrook History Center. One, the schematic design and code review has been completed. We are now currently working on step 2, which is the construction drawings, engineering, and interpretation plan for the upstairs, as well as our phase 3 of our train shed, and of course the construction engineering of our main building itself. That budget has come out to about $104,000. The timeline for this request, the request for proposal for the interpretation plan and construction drawings were received in October of 2023. The grant that we applied for is 100% of the funding to be applied to these 3 individual projects. The project starts hopefully May of 2024, again, subject to approved funding or available funding. Community engagement will be done throughout the summer of 2023, so that way we'll be able to get the community involved in what they would like to see in our redevelopment of the upstairs and what they would like to see their Cranbrook History Center to actually be. And then, of course, our phase 2 hopefully will be completed by December 2025, so we can start on phase 3. Again, step 3 is phase construction. Phase 1 of the freight shed, which again is budgeted around a $2 million construction estimate from 2022. That is without engineering completed and does not include exhibit design or fabrication, which could be very costly as we move forward. The timeline is a detailed estimate and project. It's out to tender for 2025. Construction drawings have been completed. Fundraising and grant applications will be completed throughout the 2025 and 2026 season. These are all the partners that we have been able to work with throughout the community of Cranbrook and of course the East Kootenays. We'd like to again take this opportunity to thank everybody who has been a partner with us, as they've been very instrumental in our success this year. And again, you know, I'd like to reach and again thank you folks, council and mayor, for again your support in what we have done in order to grow and to be as successful this year. And we hope for continued success as we move on into 2024 and beyond. So I'd like to thank you for your time and try to keep us on schedule as much as I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Jared. Great presentation. Very much appreciated. Look around the table. Questions, comments? Councillor Peabody, then Councillor Stetsky.
Thank you, Jared, for the presentation. Just looking like into the new year here, 2024, what sort of unique ideas is the History Center bringing forward to attract more visitors to the museum?
So moving into 2024, we are actually working with a couple other nonprofits. One of our biggest events, we're really working on some events. We really want to work with, let me just close this. Stop. There we go. We're really working with other nonprofits to have events brought into the community. One of those events that we're looking at to bring in through summer break would be the Wildlife Festival. This is a organization that looks after animals who are rescues, exotic animals from sloths and kangaroos and things like that, who will be brought to Cranbrook so that our local people as well as East Kootenays can come have a chance to interact with something like this where they don't need to go to the big city. Our goal is we want to present programming and present events that people don't need to leave Cranbrook to go see. You don't need to travel to Calgary, you don't need to travel to Lethbridge. We want to be able to present those types of exciting events here, and those are one of the first ones that we've been doing. We have been holding a lot more free events over 2023. That will continue into 2024. We do have the CPKC holiday train coming through as well. So we're working with community groups to help get that up and going, and to really have that be an exciting event for Cranbrook locals and others who will be coming to see this event. We are also looking forward to pushing more and more into our regular annual events, from the Rock and Gem Show to our Mother's Day Tea, as well as to our Freight Train for season 3. We've just been hearing great feedback. Again, 10,000 people through the door just through our programming. It's been an exciting year, and we're hoping to, double that as we move forward.
Thank you very much, Councillor Stetsky.
Thank you, Jared and Bob. Thanks. Great to see the progress. Of course, we just finished hearing from tourism, and once again, the tourism master plan talks about potentially having an important role for the Cranbrook History Center in tourism going forward. So this is probably a question more for Bob and the board. Bob, how does that initiative get moved forward in your view? Because it's very much out there still as a very positive step potentially for the community.
I think we're very enthused about what the tourism master plan says, and I think it's a real credit to when the council and actually the founder of the museum actually established the museum where it is. So we have that opportunity today, but we do need resources to do it. And what we're working on is a number of initiatives that will allow us to upgrade the exterior of the buildings. We do have grant applications of $1 million that would go towards completion of the train shed, which I think would do quite a lot towards improving the exterior appearance. And we will be talking to other partners in terms of how we can move forward with a number of different things that will provide additional curb appeal. But as Jared says, we're also looking at larger plans which will provide an opportunity for expanded programming. And I think what we have to recognize is we really have two markets at the museum. There's the railway car collection, which is primarily of interest to visitors. So that tends to be seasonal and more focused in the traveling months during the summer and the shoulder seasons. Where we're really looking at is the ongoing year-round operations where we actually involve members of our community and, of course, members within the region. So the programming is a big part of it. The actual improvements, the capital grants and so on, we're working on those to carry forward, and the progress we make is going to depend on how successful we are in being able to get those monies pulled together. But we do need some work on a lot of those things.
Thanks, Bob. Councillor Ray has a question.
Thank you very much. Just a couple quick questions. You touched on this, but just to clarify, so for phase 2 of the train shed project, just what's the status of that? I know you got the big $1 million grant. What's the total cost looking like? What's the timeline to get that project completed?
To be honest with you, I was hoping we would have footings in the ground by now. But I guess the contractors that we're working with have been extremely busy, and we haven't been able to get the project actually physically started so far. But the money's in hand. We have ongoing discussions with them. We've also done a lot to prepare for the work that needs to be done. One of those things is moving a couple of rail cars around that are currently in the way of that project. The tender was supposed to be moved this week. I'm still working with the contractor to see whether that will come through. And we've prepared the grounds as best we can so that the move can go forward smoothly. But it's an ongoing thing. If we don't get some of this stuff started this year, and I think it's probably realistic, we're going to be moving into the spring. But it's something we'll continue to work with their engineer and the builder towards getting the project up and running next year, because we do have the resources in hand to go make a start on the project.
Oh, that's great news. Thank you. And then the other quick question, so regarding the BC Arts funding, when was the last time the museum received that funding? And you've got a couple projects to complete in order to be eligible again. So once those are completed, what's the anticipated amount for that funding should it be restored?
So
Jared, answer that one.
Yeah, I'll answer that one there for you. So we have successfully completed one project that was through our traveling exhibit through last year. We're working on another one this year, which will be a traveling exhibit. This traveling exhibit is a little bit different in terms of the scope that we're bringing. Again, trying to bring things in that you don't have to leave the city for. That is our goal, and that is our next big traveling exhibit that we'll have coming in here shortly after the Animal Festival or the Wildlife Festival. So as we increase those, I lost my train of thought. After we complete those projects, we'll be able to do one more. We have been in talks with them, and they're currently in strategic planning. So it might be that we actually don't need to finish 3 projects. It might just be that we'll have to do the current one we have and be able to move forward. But again, they couldn't give us an estimate of what we could see because they have changed it over the dynamic, or they've changed the amount of funding that's offered for operational funding through their program. So it is a little bit different than what we received years ago, but they did say it probably won't be close to that. Years ago, we saw maybe around 60,000, 70,000. They said it won't be close to that. That's a one-off. It'll probably be a lot less, just because, again, they're trying to fund as many different others through operational funding as they can. So,
Thank you.
Councillor Popoff.
Yes, thank you. You mentioned, you were talking about your code reviews and getting your the freight shed up and functional. So will the structural upgrades to the freight shed, will that meet the national museum standards so we can actually start getting traveling exhibits from the Royal Ontario Museum or the BC Museum here in the freight shed?
yes, that is 100% my goal, is to build this museum to a world-class tourist attraction that's going to be at the highest amount, either grade A or grade B. So that way we can start bringing in proper collections from other museums that can be here for traveling collections as we move forward. The traveling exhibits we're able to do, but we'd really like to be getting in those collections that can be here for small periods of time and work their way through our goals. We have looking at getting a prehistoric sloth brought in. So things like that we really want to start seeing, and we have to get to that high level in order to make sure that we can move this forward and have this exciting venue, world-class venue that we can present for sure.
Excellent, thank you.
Any further? Thank you very much, Jared and Bob. A very informative presentation, and we are looking forward to upcoming changes in the next year or two. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're just about back on time here, guys. So if we take a 10-minute recess, would work. I'll ask a mover, please. Councillor Blissett, Councillor Ray, Welcome back. We'll reconvene the meeting. Next up is Charlotte to present the operating expenses, non-taxable revenues, transfers, grants, and fee-for-service agreements. Charlotte?
Thank you, Mayor Price. So I've handed out a couple of new and updated schedules. So the first one I think we should look at is the general fund increases document. For purposes of filing this in your binder, this would be possibly appropriate just after page 5 or a little bit in conjunction with page 201. Thank you. So page 201 is the operating expenses, total operating expenses, and that is the item that we were going to start reviewing. That's a consolidated document. So it includes the utility funds as well. And what I think I'd like to do tonight is we'll leave this as part of your package, but I don't have any information. I don't have the detailed information on the utility accounts tonight. We'll review those next Wednesday. So what I'd like to do instead is review the information that was on that general fund increase document I've just handed out. So this is dual purpose, to go through the operating expenses in the general fund, and also to address council's questions from last night about what makes up the increase of the 8.6. Down at the bottom of that page, you'll see the general increase of $2,502,542. That number ties into the tax levy increase page that is at the front of your package on page 5. So that's the number I'm reconciling to. Is that okay? Okay. So what we've done is I've picked up the 2023 budgets and the 2024 budgets. We have calculated the change in dollars and in percentages. Opening with expenses and then changes on the revenue side. Under expenses, the first item we'll take a look at is wages. So wages in the general fund have gone up $834,848. That's a 6% increase. Couple of comments on here. So watch clerks that were approved last year were 50% funded from surplus in 2023 and 50% from taxes. They're now 100% picked up in taxes. Council also approved 3 winter seasonal positions for 2024. Jason made reference to that last night in his presentation, highlighting the increase in level of service for snow removal. And we have increased department contingencies by $50,000. So that's to cover things like EDOs, sick days, quite frankly, particularly in finance and over at the RCMP. And the other thing that's interesting or that's important to understand about this number is that it picks up the shortfall from the increase to the union contracts in 2023. Our budget in 2023 for the QP and the IFF contracts was not where we think the market conditions are indicating we should land. So that is compounding in 2024 because similarly with 2024 we budgeted a lower amount similar to 2023, but we get a chance to reset that now that we're budgeting for 2024, but I do have to add the shortfall from 2023. So I understand that might be a little bit perplexing, but if you'd like me to try to explain that a different way, I can do that. Okay. So in benefits, we have an increase of $546,000. So there are a number of items under benefits, and they are CPP, EI, employer health tax, WCB, extended health, dental, short-term, long-term leaves, AD&D and life, wellness, and MPP. We have had discussions, a number of discussions with council about increases to WCB. The increase from 23 to 24 is $200,000. We are also seeing increases in our premiums for our the other components of our benefits. Another kind of a drill down piece of information is that with something like CPP, there are maximums. So once you reach a certain level of income, you've maxed out your CPP contributions. The CPP contributions have increased, or the maximum has increased, pardon me. So let's say the maximum was $70,000, the maximum is now 80. That means that as an employer, you're paying CPP premiums for your employees on an additional $10,000 for employees who make above the 70. And if you've taken a look at any municipalities' SOFI reports, those SOFI reports are getting longer and longer because there are positions are being paid more than $75,000. And so it definitely impacts not just a select few employees. Similarly, with CPP, there are now 2 levels of contributions. And Charlene, did you want to highlight that, or?
Well, there's 2 tiers, so I can't remember off the top of my head so you go up to a maximum, and then there's another maximum level. So for high income earners, I believe it's 4%. I can't remember exactly, but there's 2 tiers now. So that's new for 2024 that the feds have put it.
Yeah. So those are the sort of increases that we're seeing with benefits. And, we've had a number of discussions around the mental health issues we're facing in terms of leave, long-term and short-term. And those become cost drivers in the benefits realm. On utilities, so we did have a small reduction in utilities as a result of the memorial. And contract services have gone up $58,000, and that can be any number of things. It could be the opening and closing of the public washrooms. It could be the contract up at Idlewild. So those have seen a $58,000 or an 8% increase.
Charlotte, Councillor Stetsky has a question, if you could.
Quick question on WCB again. So if we reduced our injuries, I guess, let's say from WCB, that 200,000 potentially goes down in the future. And just a quick question, I think he said 80% were sprains and strains. Is that because of our aging workforce, or why is that so high?
Councillor Stetsky through Mayor Price. Yes, if our experience or our injuries decline, eventually you will see a decline in the premium. So WCB works on a 3-year sliding scale. So the number of injuries you have in year 1 have the most effect on your premium. The number of injuries you have you had 2 years ago have less weight, and 3 years ago even less weight. So yes, but it takes time. And Andy's group is working on, Andy mentioned it in his presentation, on the safety audit that's being done with the hope that one day we would be core certified, which would which is the ultimate sort of pinnacle certification with WCB. A few years ago, our WCB premiums were based on a discount off the base. The base this year was increased to just over 3. It's 3 point something. So if you're doing fine, your premium is 3, but you can also be doing better than fine, and you end up with a discount below the base. And we used to get the discount, but we're now at a premium. We're paying a premium above the base. So certainly, and that $200,000 is an increase over the 2023 budget. It's not that many years ago that, I asked Charlene to pull the report earlier, and we're over $900,000 budgeted for WCB in 2024. And 5 years ago, was it 300? Yeah, about 300, not even 5 years ago. So it's accelerated very quickly.
That by itself is 0.6 or a little more % of a tax increase.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is why this gets difficult, because it's so nuanced. The base is now 3 something. A few years ago it was low 2s. So while the base is increasing and our experience is increasing, we're kind of taking a double hit. So most municipalities will have seen an increase because the base has gone up. So there are a number of things going on that are driving that. But there is a lot of effort out there by the HR team to reverse that trend. But in the meantime, we don't have a choice.
CEO Virtuo's going to comment.
Just in addition to what the CFO said is thanks to council's support for the training dollars, like we've put a lot of effort and training into the safety training, the safety program. And as the HR director outlined, like we invited BC Municipal Safety Association in. They're doing a complete audit, and now that we have Craig on board, we're updating and completely revamping all of the safety programs and policy of the city. And we're looking forward to all of those efforts. But as Charlotte said, it's a 3-year rolling cycle. So what we're being affected with was 3 years past. And so that curve that Andy had up on the wall was super important, because what you saw, the previous council had seen a chart that was showing a parabolic move upwards in the price of WCB. And now what you're seeing is that curve flattening. And now we're looking at starting to move that curve downward. And that is a massive turning of a ship.
I'm sorry, Councillor Stutsky, was there another piece to your? No.
Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick follow-up on that. I don't know if we have the specific breakout numbers, but I wonder if the new automated garbage trucks will also make a contribution. The hope is that will certainly decrease the potential for injuries in terms of, I would think, shoulder injuries and those kinds of things.
Councillor Ray, through Mayor Price, that was certainly part of the original business case all those years ago when it was first discussed, was to reduce injuries to the workers. Thank you. So the next item that we talked about, or that we were getting to, was transit. So we talked about transit yesterday. So there's an increase in the transit expense combined between paratransit or custom transit and conventional transit of $156,000. The municipal policing contract is up $704,977. That's the increase in the budget. Software contracts are up $98,541. And insurance is up $38,000. Did I say 900? I'm sorry, $98,541. Councillor Ray,
Hand up there. Yeah. Councillor Blissett has a question.
Thank you. So I'm wondering on this first category here, is there any leeway in this? Are we making any choices? So contract services, is there anything we can say yes or no to on this? Transit, I'm assuming there's nothing we can do. And I'm assuming on municipal policing, that's the same. Software contracts, an increase of 23%. Is there anything we can go, okay, maybe not? I'm assuming insurance we can't change. Membership, training, and travel. Anything, I think we can do something. Off the top of my head, I think we could do something on that, but I don't know. Supplies and parts, which I thought I was told that that was going to be a huge increase in cost. It's only a 3% increase in cost. So I'm just wondering where there's any scope here.
Councillor Blissett. So a couple of things on supplies and parts. The really significant increases are in the utilities.
Okay.
And so here, a lot of this is paper supplies.
Yes or nothing.
Yeah, so that one's not huge at all. Oh, we reduced it. Oh, yeah, no, that's right. So the $98,000, thank you, Charlene. So the $98,000 increase includes the increase as a result of our new HRIS system.
Okay.
Yeah, so that will be coming on board in 2024.
But we had that in carry forward.
That's the project cost. These are the operating costs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So before this gets to council, this is where we have, we've looked at moving stuff around. We've looked at where our budget's not being spent, where are, does someone else need the budget more? And just in terms of the training, the membership training and travel, this also includes, these are the department budgets that pay for things like the professional designation renewals of your engineers and your technicians and your accountants and your, that's what those budgets, in part, that's what they pick up. There's additional training required. Councillor Stetsky, you made an interesting comment about WCB. Is it because of an aging workforce, or is it a younger workforce that needs better training? So, and in terms of the WCB question, if we don't train our staff to be safe, then, we're sort of talking out of both sides of our mouth. You saw from Jason, he had asked for a $20,000 increase to support the entire crew at Public Works because they had something like $300 or a few $100s per employee. That's not enough to keep, and a lot of this training is annually, requires annual renewal. Yeah, annual certification, thank you. So, so there's, we've already done that work. And does that mean that there isn't somewhere in here buried $5,000 that could be saved? No. Sure. That $5,000 is probably in there. But, we also talk about running it so tight that at the end of October is the CFO having to say, stop spending, stop spending, stop hiring, stop everything, put fuel in the truck, and that's it, because we're running it so tight.
CEO Francis got a comment.
We could probably dive deeper into this under an HR portfolio, but another thing I just want council to be aware of is the difficulty in attracting qualified, certified staff in a lot of areas. So let's talk about refrigeration operators that are critical, or we can't operate our ice plants to run the arena, the whole Western financial place. And a lot of people aren't running around with a certificate ready to asking for a job. And so we're hiring people, and then you need to train them to get them into that place. And same with a lot of the positions now. And what Scott talked about, our mechanics, we brought them into the emergency certification level. So otherwise we had to outsource the repairs of the fire trucks. So yes, there's a cost for training, but there's a benefit on the other side. So just looking at purely at the training, you're not seeing what are the savings and what's the reasons. Because sure, we don't train refrigeration operators, but then we can't operate the facilities. We could outsource the trucks, but the contract fees go up. Like it's, all these things are so interconnected in the web. That's why I'm saying that I think the concept of a higher level by service view for council is more fitting than at an object code level like this, because there's it's like a spider web. Things are so interconnected. It doesn't, you can't really make good decisions here.
Thank you for that. Councillor Graham has a question.
Yeah, just a couple things of note. With the WCB increase of approximately 200,000, wasn't it also an increase of 300,000 last year or something like that? Like, has our WCB gone up $500,000?
It was a big jump last year as well.
So, okay, so we're paying roughly $500,000 more in WCB at this point until we can get the rate to, the claims to go down, then which drives the rate down.
Councillor Graham, when we first started talking about this, the number that I threw out there as a few years ago was $300,000. This year it's 900.
I don't think we get any further comment on that one. Thank you.
Yeah, no question. I wish it wasn't so, but
Yeah.
And legal and professionals. So we have, there's a reduction there of $23,000. So then transit, so of course revenue plays into this as well, increases and decreases in revenue, because as you'll see when we start looking, when we take a quick look at non-tax revenue, it is, we have other sources of revenue, non-tax revenue, we come up with all of that, and then it's taxes that fill the void. So, so when there are changes to our non-tax revenue, it's felt on the tax levy. So transit, we've reduced that by $28,000. I am going to have another quick look at that, because when I created the budget with $220,000, like we talked about yesterday, that's using BC Transit's numbers. And then when I'm comparing that against our projections for the end of 2023, there's a bigger spread than I'm comfortable with. It's not a lot of money, but I'm just going to take another look at that. So that might, you know, give us a little bit there, but it won't be significant. Fire protection contracts, increasing revenue of $41,000.
So can we increase that?
The fire contract?
Yes.
It's by contract, no.
So when does that come up for renewal?
It's a couple of years.
Okay.
A year or two, Councillor Blissett. I'll take a look at it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because there is an opportunity there, I think, particularly with the regional district for increasing.
I do believe that we'll have some catch up to do, because of course that contract will have straddled these very high inflationary years where we've seen higher than anticipated union contracts, collective agreement settlements than there had been at the time when we negotiated it. So there'll be an opportunity to have that discussion.
Sharon, if I could as well, I think that when it's time to renew, we have to look at the, I think the original concept of how we come up with those numbers. I don't see relevance in that anymore. You know, with you know, I'm going back again to our operations of our facilities, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, I don't think we're obligated to, you know, align it somehow with a 20% factor. I really believe that it is an opportunity where we may have to significantly increase that. And make no mistake, we could significantly increase that, and it would be still very, very good value for our Area C residents. I'm not trying to take advantage of anybody. It's got to be fair to the city as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor Price. Revenue in the engineering department, things like sediment control, erosion control, those types of things. Those are revenue items over there, and those have been reduced $4,000. Building permits, as we had a discussion about, those have been reduced $100,000. So Charlene raised a good point. In our financial stabilization reserve, we just have to finish looking at at that particular reserve. But that reserve is set up to deal, quite frankly, specifically with fluctuations in something like building permits. The problem is we've been using it for everything else. So we're just doing a little bit of reallocation, and then we're going to have a discussion with council next week about the reserves. But I'm just not quite prepared to say yet what the balance looks like in that reserve. A lot of the things that should have been going through the new initiative reserve have ended up going through the financial stabilization reserve because there was no balance in the new initiatives reserve. Now there's a small grant that's being allocated to the new initiatives reserve related to energy conservation. So some of those projects have been reallocated. Similarly, some of the projects that are on your list, on your new asks list, are being funded from the new initiatives reserve. Nonetheless, to get back to the financial stabilization reserve, the job of that reserve is to smooth out something like fluctuating building permit revenues. So that is an opportunity that we can look at, like CAO Furcho was saying, council's hands are not tied. We can do that. It does draw down the reserve. But that is the job of the reserve, is to help in those situations. So that's a conversation I think would be worth having. Not tonight maybe, but just throw it out there for your consideration. Recreation programs, slight increase there of $6,750. Arenas, which is Western, Memorial, and Kinsman, a net drop of $81,500 for 2024, and then in 2025 we've budgeted back up again. Internal administration. So this is where the utility fees pay for HR, IT, accounting, other sort of overhead, administrative overhead. So there is an allocation from the utility reserves. It does create an expense in the utility reserves, but it does provide a, not necessarily a source of, well, it transfers a reprieve over to the general fund. And in this year, we've increased that by $102,000. Tax penalties are budgeted to go up $25,000. Interest on taxes, $11,000. The Fortis operating fee has gone up $15,000. And credit card convenience fees, I see I should have put that one up. No, that one's correct, sorry. $8,000. So we charge an administration fee if you want to pay your taxes with a credit card. In years past, we never would have accepted a credit card, but there was direction to do that. And then with that, we apply a 2.4% fee, and some people elect to do that. And Western Financial Place naming rights, it expires at the end 2024, at the end, in the middle, in June or July, yep. And so we're not sure what's going to happen there. So we've reduced the budget to $10,000. And interest revenue into the general fund. Most of the interest revenue, if anybody has taken a look at the detailed sheets, the interest revenue is quite high, but that interest revenue ends up going into the reserves. Most of that goes into the reserves. So this $133,000 is the increase in the interest revenue on our general bank account, where for the portion that's not been set aside for a reserve. And then, of course, the non-market change reduction of $140,000. And then there's some residual $43,000 of other, and essentially it that balances to the 2.5 that you see on the tax levy change. Now, you may also be choosing to divide this by $327,000, but you need to add the road dedicated tax to that.
Councilor Bissett.
So could you explain what's happened to non-market change? I don't understand that.
Sure. So in 2023, we budgeted. So what happens is when properties come onto the roll or values come onto the roll, and it's typically because of building, then that's considered new. And the increase in your assessment as a community, that's not because of market conditions, that's because of new development. So it's new taxes. So next year, now sometimes what happens is like with Broad Street, it took a number of years for Broad Street to be fully absorbed into our roll. So Broad Street for a number of years contributed to an increasing non-market change. Broad Street is completely absorbed. We did take a look at Toyota and yeah. And because the assessed value, the value that makes it onto the roll is as at July 31st, and because some of their development was captured the year before in 2020 for the 2023 non-market change, the impact on the 2024 non-market change of those two properties is, is minimal.
Councillor Ray, then Councillor Steske.
Thank you, Mayor. Charlotte, this is a bit of a detailed question. It's okay if we don't have this information right now. So in this updated list that you've just gone through, we've got the general increase at about 2.5 million. On the tax levy summary you gave us, we've got the general increase at 2.7 million. So there's about $275,000 difference. Is there any chance that we can go with the lower number that's on the updated sheet you've provided? And if not, that's okay, because maybe there's some items that aren't included on this summary sheet you've just gone through, but I just thought I would ask.
On page 5.
Yeah. I'm just right. If this is the number, then it would just allow us to adjust our tax levy summary page a little bit.
I'm not expecting it, but never say never.
Okay, I'll keep your fingers crossed.
Thank you. Councillor Steske.
Interest revenue, that's based on the new 5% return or whatever, like what's that number based on?
It is currently our cash deposits at the bank are earning 5.4. Yeah. So it fluctuates, right? But yes, it's so, while inflation has its downside, there is at least that.
Thank you, Charlotte.
So just in terms of wrapping up on page 201, I'm not going to go into any further detail on that. Like I say, it's consolidated. We have actually talked about the RCMP policing contract. We're going to talk about debt servicing tomorrow or next week rather. And then, like I say, this contains the water and the sewer numbers. So I would prefer to speak to those in a little bit more detail when we talk about them next Wednesday. Page 203, I think we're going to get through this stuff pretty quick. Page 203 is our non-tax revenue. We have, in essence, just talked about a lot of this, and certainly the difference between 2003 and 23 rather, and 2024. Again, this is the revenue that we calculate before we start looking at taxes. So where there's an opportunity to, legitimately increase the revenue in order to not overtax, we would certainly do that. I do see one item here that those property rentals, we haven't talked about those. Those are throughout the city, the seniors home, not the seniors home, the seniors center, pardon me, the Cocoa Beach, the library building, the library building. So there's not a lot of change there. We know, as we've had discussions with council about that land use plan, and so there's hope that we can come up with something that makes sense, that meets all of our current lessees, not so much meets their expectations, but that creates some equity across the board to some of our lessees. So, like I said, I don't think there's any point in going into more detail on any of this. And page 205 is essentially our grants. And I had a conversation with the mayor the other day, and we looked at the Canada Community Building Fund, formerly the gas tax, and it expires in 2024, which is why there's nothing there. But I neglected to point out that it's actually down below in the unconfirmed. So we show them both we show the confirmed portions and the unconfirmed portions. And that, so it's not that we've forgotten about it, and we are expecting them to settle on something. We just haven't heard what that's going to be.
So it is in our budget.
Yeah, it is in the budget. Yeah, just unconfirmed.
So it's unconfirmed, but you have it in 25, 26, 27. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you very much. Yes.
Yeah, we do up in confirmed.
It's our last year.
Yeah.
It's our last year for it.
Yeah, so the contract expires in 2024. And I know they're working on it, so we're not expecting that it will go away. And then there's the small community traffic fine sharing, $400,000 a year. And there's that local government climate action program grant that we were talking about with, that's going into the new initiatives reserve. And that's the one that we're also funding it's no longer the energy manager. I'm sorry, I can't recall the title of the environmental specialist. Yeah. So,
energy specialist.
Yeah. So that grant is funding that position, and it actually has permanent funding of 50%. It's 50% permanently funded. It was a part-time position that's been made full-time because of this grant. The regional district library building cost sharing, North Star Trail, Social Development Coordinator, and we're showing that funding from the regional district for 24 and 25. And some other minor from other organizations. What is that? $16,000. And then unconfirmed funding, a lot of the Fire Smart, and then the seniors fitness park replacement. So these are projects that are in the budget that are grant dependent. So those grants have been captured here. And there you see the library exterior revitalization, and then that LG CAP community EV charging plan, and the regional district mosquito control program. I think it's just they send us money and we say thank you. And then a similar format in the water, sewer, and solid waste. There is the lagoon dike and wastewater treatment upgrade phase 2. That's been that's unconfirmed. That's a grant. That's right. That's not been confirmed yet.
Councillor Stetsky has a question, please.
When you receive grants, is there ever an opportunity through creative accounting to reduce some of our base costs? Like the grant may fix something that could cost us money, I guess, but are we ever able to address some of our ongoing costs through a grant? to
Councillor,
save some money?
yeah, Councillor Stetsky, through Mayor Price, typically not. I have to sign off the report. So unless it's an eligible expense, I wouldn't be able to do that. Most grant applications or most grant awards are fairly specific. I mean, certainly there's some grace around, they don't tell you how many, which widget to buy and how much to pay for the widget, but it's typically capital, or in the case of an asset management grant, for example, or an asset management plan, it might be for something like that. But there isn't a lot of opportunity to be creative. And just as on that, when we had that $8 million grant for the piping out to the lagoon from Victoria, and then the second half of that grant to do the actual work out at the lagoons, because we were going over budget and we were, because of the high inflationary environment that they were dealing with when they were starting the lagoon project, we actually reached out to the granting organization and said, okay, if we can't get this done, what happens, specifically what happens to the $4 million we've spent on the piping from Victoria to the lagoons? You'd have to pay it back. Yeah, so, some grant organizations are easier, are less strict. The CBT, I think, tends to be fairly flexible. But they would not support any kind of operating or maintenance type expenditures.
Councillor Ray has a question.
Related question. So for grants that the city is applying for, is it standard practice to have an opportunity to put in a 10 to 15% admin fee, or is that not normal for grants that the city would apply for?
Councillor Ray, through Mayor Price, if the grant program permits it, we do. If they don't, we don't.
Perfect. Thank you.
And in solid waste, there are 2 years of the curbside recycling program confirmed and 2 years of the Recycle BC. So pardon me, the first portion is for the regional district. The second portion is for the Recycle BC portion. And then the unconfirmed portion is for the Recycle BC going out to 2028. And then some unconfirmed funding out at the airport.
Charlotte, if I could, just up to the water fund there, the transfer out of that reserve. I guess we'll see that next. I won't worry. The next time we're meeting, I think we're going to go over surplus and reserve thing. I'll save it for then. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So the next item is really just for completeness of the package to remind council of the grant awards that were approved back in September, I believe it was. Yeah, September 27th. Not in 2024, in 2023, I see. And
Councillor Popoff has a question. Thank you.
Sure.
Yes, thank you. So the page 207, the grants to organizations, we talked about at some point capping that as opposed to just the annual updates.
Yeah.
Is that something we, not necessarily now, but we want to think about going forward, please?
Yeah. Yes, of course, Councillor Popoff. It's on my work plan. And the final page, page 211, is contributions to others, fee for service. So here's the information on the library. I'm hoping this is clear what it is, how we're, the ask, so up to the $894,000 in 2023, that line item. So everything across there is in the budget. It's the items below that are going to be part of the new ask. And in the new ask, we've just included the 2024 because that's what is going to be impacting 2024. I will, when I write the information for the December 13th package. I will be more, will be more complete in terms of what the implications of some of these are. So if you were to approve the $33,847 dollar increase in 2024, that carries through into perpetuity. That will be ongoing. The $5,589 is also going to be an ongoing item. And then a similar approach under 2025, the unhighlighted 5.7 is because it belongs to the 55, and then you have 29,000, which would be ongoing, 6,100, which would be ongoing. There are really only two, I believe, that aren't ongoing. So they're not one-time asks. So with the exception of those two one-time asks, the other asks would have to be funded from taxes.
So we're giving them a 4.6% increase over 2023 in 2024.
Correct.
That's embedded.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And then
Councillor Stetsky has a question. Sorry, Charlotte.
So I'm not sure if we're down to the bottom of that page, but what's visitor services?
Cranbrook Tourism.
Cranbrook Tourism.
Yeah, yeah. And just for council's information, that at the end, the library total of 975,000, that's the entire portion, and the regional district would be contributing their 20% of that.
So I just got a question here, Mayor.
Sorry. Yes.
Thank you. With Cranbrook Tourism, they seem to be a fairly financially healthy organization. Is it feasible for us to reduce the $70,000 that we give them every year? Like, could we reduce that in half, and could they still provide the visitor services to the level that they still do, just with their extra MRTD funding? It's probably more of a question for Cranbrook Tourism, but that might be an area where, we can see a slight decrease in our costs.
Councillor Peabody through Mayor Price, there is a contract. I can't remember what the expiry date of the contract is, so we'd have to take a look at that, unless there was an appetite to open it up.
That's a really good point, because, if you look at the 3% room tax, right, that and the city passed, the bylaw there, and, what was it? How much was it? 400 and some thousand this year, 300 and some $1,000, or, that's pretty significant. And that's exactly. Yeah. So that's a good point, Councillor Peabody. Councillors.
Yes, thank you. Good question, Councillor. The MRDT is very fixed on what you can spend that money on. It's basically branding, marketing, advertising, and staff associated for those efforts. The visitor center is like we used to do the Chamber of Commerce. It's just rolled over to the tourism board now and staff to run. So it's kind of a separate entity from the MRDT money.
Yeah, thank you there.
Just a comment from our support staff downstairs. The contract expires in 2027.
Councillor Peabody.
Thank you. One other question. I noticed, and you had it here on page 205, I believe. Oh, sorry, 207 in your memo. And you talk about any in-kind labor provided by Public Works and Fire Services related to other city-held festivals has been budgeted separately under parades and festivals. I also noticed it looks like, I don't know if it's in-kind labor, but labor dedicated to the cemetery has also been increased, almost double from previous years. What it's hard to see is where that labor was in the previous year. Like, we've transferred $40,000 to parades and festivals, and another $40,000 to the cemetery. But all of our other labor charges have also increased substantially. So I just want to make sure we're not double dipping the labor, that we've increased one, but we're also increasing the other.
Councillor Peabody, through Mayor Price, Charlene and Tony Hitu went through an exercise of re-examining the allocations of staff at Public Works. So we've been running with very similar percentages for quite a long time. So this year, Charlene had a much more robust discussion with Tony than we've been able to do in the last few years, just because of staff movement and stuff. So there were some fairly significant reallocations.
It's all the same labor pool. It's just how we're allocating in between the cost centers.
Yeah. So did that answer your question?
It does answer my question. It's just usually when there's an allocation of labor, there's a decrease in one pool and an increase in another, but there's no decreases. It just seems to be increases all along the board, but there's also the inflation.
We have a pretty substantial pool of TDLs, truck drivers, laborers, that really are anywhere. So they can be in the utility fund, they can be, so they can be in water or sewer, they can be at City Hall, they can be at the RCMP. So overall, that pool, I don't believe has seen a reduction in the numbers. No. So it's just a reallocation, certainly of that pool. Like, I'm not aware that anyone's been pulled off anything. There's been a reallocation based on usage. Maybe there's been a drop based on budget because it wasn't necessary, or they had done a significant project in 2023. I'm sorry, I don't know the details of that, Councillor Peabody.
Yeah, it's like usually, like if we're going to reallocate like funding from one reserve to another, one reserve would be less, the other reserve would be more. But it looks like with Public Works, when you look at their operating expenses, all of their labor expenses have increased along the board. None of their salaries and wages line items have decreased.
Sorry.
Does that make sense?
I mean, there's a.
I think you have to take I can take the whole Public Works budget and look at it from, because I don't have 2023 numbers in there. So
yeah,
if I had that, then I think.
Oh, stop.
Sorry. But
yes, there's a few things going on. So there's the reallocation, there's the wage increase, there's the winter seasonal that's been added. So, and was there anybody who moved? Did Curtis Mummery get reassigned? Yeah.
Yeah, so there's some of that happening too.
Yeah, so into another department.
Allocated, yeah. And how we split stuff between the funds too.
Yeah. Because remember, Caitlin used to be across all three funds.
Yeah, so there's that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So no one's been let go, if that's.
No. I'm just, it's just like when you look at administration for Public Works, like it's up 19%.
Are you looking at the spreadsheet that was sent out earlier this morning?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. But it's also like, I guess that is where I'm looking. So, administration, like salaries and benefits for administrations up 19%. Buildings is up 88%. Other city buildings is up 29%. City Hall is down 48%, but that's only $30,000. The library building's up just minor amount. Where else do we have salaries? Roads is up 14%. Snow and ice control is up 27%. Cemeteries is up 41%. Parks and playgrounds is down 3%, but that's only, again, like $30,000. And then parades and festivals is up 40%. So this is just,
So Councillor
This year.
Peabody, I think maybe we should take that offline and we can take, because we did spend some time on that email this morning, looking at one area that had been identified, and it had to do with a person being missing in the numbers that were included in the spreadsheet. So rather than spend time here, let us have a look at it.
okay.
And then we can perhaps have a chat offline about it if that's all
Great.
right.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
perfect.
Perfect. Councillor Graham, you're not off the hook yet, Charlotte.
Yeah, so just kind of to stem off what Councillor Peabody was bringing up, and as we are getting more sophisticated across departments with costing, will our new systems that we are putting into Public Works, HR, and payroll be able to start showing true costings for these areas? Like, will we be able to truly cost out? Are you going to create the SKUs that, okay, you're at the cemetery for half an hour, enter? Like, are we going to be able to, I think if we're splitting costs out that way, we should also be truly time tracking that way. So then it gives it a more fulsome picture of what these services truly cost.
So with our new FMW salary plan that we just started last year,
So just a second,
Sorry.
FMW is the budget?
is the budget, yeah. With that salary plan, we are able to provide a better costing of everything. So this year I worked with Tony and really went through the allocations. So that's why we are seeing a lot of changes. So with our actual costs, we already do track what the actual costs are. So yeah, so that's part of the. I don't know if that answers your question, but.
Yeah, but Councillor Graham, another piece of that HRIS is electronic timesheets. So, because right now, and not to, get too much into the weeds, but right now when we record timesheets, they're manual, and we record a 70-hour work week. And that's what we record in payroll. And over in Public Works, they do record into City Works and by job. So out of City Works, we're starting to build that database of information around, that valve or that hydrant or that. So that stuff is already growing. That database has been growing and is becoming quite robust. On the HR side, when we start with electronic timesheets and people are actually submitting and getting paid for 7 hours on Monday, 7 hours on Tuesday, not 7 hours or 70 hours for a pay period, better reporting will be available, more from an HR sort of, trending who's coming on Mondays or not coming on Mondays, that sort of thing. Because it's really, I think what you're referring to is really what's already available in City Works. And from a budget perspective, like Charlene says, she has that kind of detail on the budget side.
Thank you, Councillor Stetsky.
I'm sure you've considered this, but a cautionary note where data is only useful if something actually happens with it afterwards. You can spend an awful lot of time putting stuff in. And I can remember time studies done with public servants years ago in Manitoba where somebody would say 20 minutes in the bathroom, it must have been something I ate. You just have to make sure that you're actually getting some benefit out of the data that you're collecting.
That ends my section for this evening.
Let's go through council. Any questions or comments from council? No? Councillor Stetsky.
So looking ahead, Charlotte, again, in sort of the big picture, you gave us that chart and the public will be asked to comment in a particular period of time. Historically, we received very, very few comments from the public. If the numbers that they see change that, I'm just curious, in all the years you've been involved, has public input changed the final outcome of what went forward? And I know part of it's, and I say there's been very little comment that I've ever seen in the past anyway from the public, but you could just comment briefly on the period and then what happens with the input we get from the public.
Thank you very much for that question, Councillor Stetsky, through the mayor. So as CAO Furcho mentioned yesterday, we are going to initiate a bit of a new timeline for the public consultation portion of our budget. In the past, what we did was we created that lovely summary package after all the, everything was done, and we took it out to the public for 2 weeks. And we said, please provide your comments by Friday at 4 o'clock, and we'll bring it to council the following Monday for consideration, which would be the same meeting where we were doing 3 readings. So always kind of struggled with that because we were inviting the public to attend the public meetings. We were saying, provide input after the meeting. If you hear something you'd like to comment on, please do so. Have it to us by this and this date, and we'll bring it forward to council at the next budget meeting. And that will be, we'll do the same thing this year. But the difference this year is we're planning on putting out information following Wednesday's meeting. And then I think CAO Furcho thought maybe we would put it out Wednesday, maybe Thursday. We're going to do it Wednesday. Okay, we're doing it Wednesday. And so it'll go out on the 15th. And then it will be, the public will have until December 1st to comment. And then we will incorporate that into the package that goes to council a week later. We'll publish it a week later, and we'll be having those discussions on December 13th. So council will have an opportunity to hear from the public before we get to a place where further changes are not possible. Yeah.
Thank you. And Charlotte, with that, on behalf of council, thank you very much. I know we're not finished yet. We're partway through, but it's pretty evident with the packages that we've got. We appreciate the amount of work who's going in. Certainly Mark and I are here on a fairly regular basis, and we know that your staff are working minimum 50-hour weeks here for the past while to get this budget prepared, so that council can be informed. And council, thank you very much, because we got these packages, a little bit before the weekend, and I know for sure every member here was working over the weekend on these packages. And I will say one thing: I've seen, I've been involved with probably 6 councils, in my history back with Cranbrook, and I can assure you that this council is very well prepared, well informed. They do their homework. So on that, I'm looking forward to the next step. Thank you very much. Yeah, with that, the last item for today, I'll get a motion to adjourn the meeting, please. Councillor Stetsky, Councillor Blissett, and yes, it has been a long day. All in favor?